Thank you very much, Michael. I was looking at all these books here and saying that I used to have a big head of curly hair, and then I started to write these books. I often feel if I hadn't written them, it would all still be there. You know, I'd look like Art Garfunkel or something. You know. Taller as well, maybe. I want to talk a bit about the origins of this book. I was brought up in a small town in the southeast of Ireland. I was born in 1955. Devotion to the Virgin Mary was taken for granted. The only travelling that the people of the older generation did when they left Ireland, it wasn't to go on holidays, but it was to go on pilgrimage. And they went to Lourdes. And they came back, you know, and they talked a great deal about the things they saw there. But everyone believed that Mary had appeared there to St. Bernadette. It wasn't questioned. There was no issue about it. And people believed that you could be cured there if you had an illness. But that even if you didn't have an illness, you could find some spiritual grace there which would matter and, you know, take you through the winter. I had an uncle, all right, and he did... And there was a priest in the town who was very much against this. He went into Spain, my uncle, and he went onto beaches in San Sebastian as part of the pilgrimage, you know, as a way, because it was so close, you know. But there was a priest in the town who thought that was very wrong, that you either went on the pilgrimage or you didn't. And I had an aunt who did the same, actually. Maybe they all sneaked into Spain and lay on beaches and got a bit of a suntan as well. But that wasn't the purpose of their trip. The purpose was to go on, to go to Lourdes, to see where Mary had appeared. People also went to Knock in the west of Ireland, where she had appeared. As later I would go to Medjugorje in Bosnia-Herzegovina, where she'd also appeared. The idea of praying to her really mattered, which was that if you really needed something, if you wanted something, if you were in trouble, it was Mary you would appeal to, because she had been mortal, she had been powerless, and now she was Queen of Heaven. And that in some way or other, more than God Almighty or Jesus or others of the saints, she was the one who might understand, so that the church, the cathedral in Enniscorthy, had statues of her. And every evening in our house, we said the rosary, which included, you know, each decade of the rosary had 10 Hail Marys. Okay, it had an Our Father at the beginning and Glory be to the Father at the end, but it was 10 Hail Marys each time. And then at the end, this beautiful prayer, the Salve Regina, the Hail Holy Queen, which had the beautiful lines, "To thee do we send up our sighs, mourning and weeping in this valley of tears." The problem, I suppose, became one for me that when I went to look at the Gospels, I found that she was almost absent. She was there as the mother of the child Jesus, obviously the Annunciation, where she was told that she was going to have this child, but that she didn't speak much, and that only St. John had her actually at the foot of the cross at the crucifixion, which became the subject for all these great paintings. And Matthew, Mark, and Luke did not. And so the more I read about this, the more I discovered that, that St. John, for example, wrote later. And he seems to me among the four to be the one who's the novelist. I mean, if there was one of them had to win the Booker Prize, it would be St. John, I think, his name would be announced and he would hold up his book, which is more than I've ever got to do, I have to say. And, but that in one translation of the Gospels, in the introduction, it says that he may have read Aeschylus. And I looked at that sentence, meaning that he may have read or known about the Greek theatre. And what came into my mind was an image, which was almost the beginning of this book, but I didn't use it in the book in the end, was the image of a young man who had been through all these experiences of the crucifixion, of the fear and the fleeing that happened later.
Now, really and seriously, how did you dare to do it?
Oh, well, I suppose idea. There's a poem by Rilke, for example, called Orphea Eurydice Hermes, where he retells the story of Orpheus going back down into the underworld to look for Eurydice. And of course, she, because this is a sort of modern interpretation, she's so filled with her own great death that she doesn't really notice him. That the idea that she was with him in the overworld really has escaped her now. There's too much happening. And I suppose that idea of retelling stories, has been there throughout. I had certainly read D.H. Lawrence's book, The Man Who Died, which is about the crucifixion. I hadn't read Saramago's book. José Saramago, the Portuguese novelist, has a wonderful novel called The Gospel According to Jesus Christ. But I was aware that this had not been done. And once it occurred to me that she should speak, that her silence was no longer necessary somehow, that it, somehow or other, in the same way as painters, at a time when she'd never been painted, began to work on a face for the Virgin Mary, that must have had a sort of a moment that was special. So I did realize that there was something that I could do, that in a way I lived in both worlds, that the childhood I described at the beginning, despite wherever you go, whatever you do, stays with you. That those initial devotions and prayers, the repetition of prayers, the absolute certainty of belief, that all of that was with me. I mean, no matter what I would rationally want to do with it, it was with me. And but also the other thing, the business that I had written these other books, and that I had some sense of how a narrative might be built. That all of that came together, and all I needed in the end was a tone. I mean, I think with any book, that an idea or an image or a memory or something known or half known lodges in the brain and may or may not become rhythm.